along the peninsula, and they're attracting people from all walks of life. Night Beach Joe Vasquez is in San Mateo County with the staggering new numbers.
Bacteria, rodents, black water, all of it.
Americans living without homes, in shelters, or on the streets continues to rise at an alarming rate.
RV life was once the American dream on wheels, but today, for over 1 million struggling Americans,
effort to build a better Bay Area. Tonight, we're looking at a mile-long stretch of road in Marin County.
The RV has become their last refuge from the housing crisis. Campground bans, government crackdowns, and skyrocketing costs are turning these homes into traps. This is the side of RV life they don't want you to see. Let's get rolling. A new face of homelessness is spreading across American cities, and it comes on wheels. More than 1 million Americans now live in RVs, vans, and trailers, not as a lifestyle choice, but because they simply can't afford rent or a mortgage. Major cities are witnessing this crisis firsthand. In Los Angeles County, vehicle dwelling has surged 55% in just 5 years. Rows of aging RVs now line industrial areas and residential streets. Phoenix, Portland, and Seattle report similar scenes, entire blocks filled with stationary motorhomes that have become permanent makeshift neighborhoods. These aren't vacationers enjoying the open road. Most inhabitants are trapped in decades-old rigs, often unsafe and breaking down, with nowhere else to go. They work jobs, send kids to school, and try to maintain dignity while living in vehicles never meant for full-time residents. As housing costs continue rising faster than wages, experts predict these numbers will only grow. What was once an invisible problem has become impossible to ignore, a rolling monument to America's affordability crisis. For over 1 million people, the American dream hasn't just stalled, it's parked on the side of the road, going nowhere. Behind America's RV homeless crisis lies a brutal math problem. With median home prices exceeding $420,000 and average urban rents topping $2,000 monthly, millions of working families face an impossible choice. When wages can't keep pace, a second-hand RV for $5,000 to $15,000 becomes not a dream purchase, but a desperate lifeline. This isn't the glamorous van life of social media. It's a family of 4 crammed into a 30-foot trailer in a Walmart parking lot, rationing generator fuel and searching for places to legally dump sewage. The costs pile up, $70 nightly at campgrounds they can't afford, or risk fines and towing by parking on city streets. These families aren't jobless. They're working, sometimes multiple jobs. But housing has simply outpaced what average Americans can earn. The RV represents their final foothold before complete homelessness. Economists project a grim future. By 2030, 1 in 10 Americans could face housing insecurity severe enough to consider vehicle living. What's emerging isn't freedom on wheels. It's a financial trap, a rolling symbol of a housing system that has fundamentally broken down for the middle class. The American dream hasn't evolved. For millions, it's been reduced to survival in a depreciating vehicle. A devastating new chapter is unfolding in America's RV homeless crisis. Retirees forced into vehicles because their Social Security checks won't cover rent. Over 20% of Americans over 65 depend solely on Social Security, averaging just $1,800 monthly in 2025, barely enough for food and medicine, let alone housing. Desperate for affordable shelter, many seniors drain modest savings to buy used RVs, hoping for simple independence. Instead, they find themselves trapped. Aging motorhomes break down constantly, with repairs costing thousands. Many campgrounds reject rigs over 10 years old, forcing retirees onto city streets or remote desert lots where medical help is dangerously distant. The costs never stop: fuel, generator maintenance, propane for heat. Seniors who worked decades find themselves rationing insulin in Walmart parking lots or shivering through winters in vehicles with faulty heaters and leaking roofs. Advocacy groups estimate over 200,000 seniors now call RVs their primary residence, with virtually no safety net if illness strikes. One mechanical failure, one health emergency, and they're stranded. This is the unthinkable reality for a generation that played by the rules. Their reward for a lifetime of work? Not the peaceful retirement they earned, but survival in a deteriorating vehicle, hoping nothing breaks down, including themselves. Tens of thousands of American children are now doing homework by generator light, showering at gym facilities, and calling aging RVs home. School districts across California and Washington report alarming increases in students classified as homeless who live in vehicles, a childhood defined not by adventure, but by instability and hardship. Picture a family of 5 squeezed into a 28-foot RV with broken plumbing, relying on bottled water and makeshift toilets. Meals come from gas station microwaves. Privacy doesn't exist. The constant hum of generators disrupts sleep, while frequent relocations to avoid parking tickets mean missed school days and broken friendships. Teachers see the toll firsthand. Exhausted students struggling without internet access for assignments, embarrassed by their living situations, falling behind academically. Advocacy groups estimate over 100,000 minors currently live full-time in RVs nationwide, numbers climbing yearly as housing costs spiral. These aren't families choosing nomadic freedom portrayed on Instagram. They're parents working multiple jobs, desperately trying to maintain normalcy while raising kids in vehicles.
It is inexcusable to accept Washington with homelessness of this dimension.
Designed for weekend camping trips, not permanent residence. For these children, the RV isn't an adventure. It's poverty with wheels, a rolling classroom in survival, and a daily reminder that America's housing crisis has stolen their childhood stability. As RV encampments grow, cities are fighting back, not with housing solutions, but with bans, fines, and mass towing operations that push vulnerable families deeper into crisis. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Denver, and dozens of other municipalities have outlawed overnight RV parking on most streets, imposing fines up to $500 per violation. But the real devastation comes during towing sweeps, nighttime operations where entire blocks of RVs are impounded at once. For families already living paycheck to paycheck, reclaiming a towed RV is virtually impossible. Towing fees exceed $1,000, with daily storage charges climbing rapidly. Most never get their homes back. In one night, they lose everything: shelter, belongings, often their only asset. Officials justify these crackdowns citing public safety and neighborhood concerns. But critics argue the policies simply criminalize poverty, offering no alternative housing while making survival illegal. Advocacy groups report thousands of RVs seized annually, erasing not the problem itself, just its visibility. For those living inside, the message is clear: you're not welcome here. The crackdown feels less like law enforcement than an attempt to hide America's housing failure by literally towing away the evidence, along with the desperate families trapped inside. A quiet policy is making RV homelessness even more desperate: the 10-year rule that bars older rigs from most campgrounds and RV parks. Any vehicle over a decade old is automatically rejected, no exceptions, regardless of condition or maintenance. For struggling families, this rule is devastating. Most can only afford RVs priced under $10,000, typically 15 to 30 years old. Even when they scrape together money for nightly campground fees, the door slams shut based solely on their rig's age. Campground operators defend the policy as preventing eyesores and safety hazards. But the real effect is discriminatory. It systematically excludes the poorest Americans who desperately need legal, safe places to park. Retirees in well-maintained 1990s motorhomes and families in older trailers are turned away, forced onto industrial streets, remote lots without water or electricity, or illegal encampments. With over 1 million Americans now depending on RVs as housing, the 10-year rule pushes a massive portion into illegality and danger. Critics call it prioritizing aesthetics over humanity, transforming campgrounds into exclusive clubs for wealthy recreational travelers while abandoning those using RVs not for leisure, but for survival. The message is brutal. If you're poor enough to need affordable shelter, you're too poor to park here. For over 1 million Americans living in aging RVs, every day is a survival gamble against fire, illness, and hazardous conditions. Most rigs are decades old with faulty wiring, leaking propane lines, and broken plumbing, ticking time bombs that desperation forces families to inhabit anyway. To stay warm or cook meals, residents improvise dangerously. Indoor propane heaters, sketchy extension cords pirating electricity from streetlights, generators running non-stop. Los Angeles County firefighters alone responded to over 200 RV fires in 2024, many from makeshift heating or cooking setups. Sanitation creates equally dire health risks. Without sewer hookups, clean running water becomes scarce. Families ration bottled water for drinking, let alone bathing. Skin infections, dehydration, and disease spread easily in cramped, unsanitary quarters. Basic hygiene becomes impossible. Public restrooms and gym showers are lifelines, when available and affordable. These aren't mere inconveniences, they're life-threatening conditions. What started as desperate housing solutions spiral into health crises, burns, respiratory illness, infections. For America's RV homeless, survival itself has become the daily danger. As RV encampments multiply, they're igniting fierce community backlash. Neighborhood associations report streets lined with deteriorating rigs, accumulated trash, and overflowing waste. In Seattle and San Diego, complaints about vehicle encampments have surged over 40% in just 2 years. Residents cite legitimate concerns: fire hazards from faulty generators, crime, drug activity, and plummeting property values. The pressure on local governments is intense. Clear them out, neighbors demand. Cities respond with aggressive towing sweeps and parking bans that displace rather than solve. Even private campgrounds are shutting doors, raising fees or restricting long-term stays to avoid becoming homeless parking lots. The result is a brutal game of displacement. Push RV dwellers from one neighborhood, and they simply reappear in another, sparking fresh outrage. Some cities attempt safe parking programs offering legal spaces with basic services, but funding is sparse and slots fill immediately, leaving thousands stranded. The community anger is understandable. Nobody wants unsafe conditions near their homes. But the backlash reveals something darker: a housing crisis so severe that communities would rather hide the problem than address its roots. The fight isn't really about RVs, it's about whether America will confront its affordability failure or simply keep moving the desperate out of sight. The RV homeless crisis isn't just a housing issue, it's become a public safety nightmare both inside encampments and in surrounding neighborhoods. With over 1 million people competing for scarce resources like water, electricity, and safe parking, tensions boil over into violence. Police reports paint a grim picture. Portland alone logged hundreds of RV-related calls in 2024. Theft, assaults, and disputes between desperate residents fighting over generator access or parking spots. Drug activity thrives in these chaotic clusters, where traditional law enforcement struggles to maintain presence. RV dwellers face threats from all sides. Outside criminals target encampments knowing rigs contain tools, electronics, and valuables. Organized theft rings strip catalytic converters, worth $500 to $1,500 each, leaving families stranded with disabled vehicles. Break-ins are constant. Inside, residents sleep with weapons nearby, install jury-rigged alarms, and trust no one. The psychological toll is devastating. Constant hypervigilance, trauma, paranoia. Mental health crumbles under relentless fear. When survival itself requires guarding possessions 24/7, the line between victim and perpetrator blurs. Some residents turn to theft or worse out of desperation. The encampments become feared by neighbors and unsafe for inhabitants, a vicious cycle where poverty, crime, and danger feed each other. Campgrounds once offered RV dwellers a crucial lifeline: electricity, water, safety, and a semblance of normalcy. Now, as homelessness surges, these refugees are slamming their gates shut. Private campgrounds complain that long-term residents bring deteriorating rigs, clutter, and declining property appeal. Their solution? Price out the poor. Nightly rates have skyrocketed to $60 to $100, impossibly expensive for families surviving on $1,500 to $2,000 monthly. At those rates, a month's stay costs more than most apartments. Parks also enforce strict stay limits of 14 to 30 days maximum, forcing constant, exhausting relocations. Pack up, find another spot, repeat. An endless cycle that drains both finances and spirit. Even public lands offer no sanctuary. The Bureau of Land Management has slashed stay limits in many areas from 14 days to just 7. citing overuse and sanitation problems caused by the influx of desperate families. For over 1 million Americans depending on RVs as their only shelter, the collapse of campground access eliminates their last legitimate option. What's left? Overcrowded Walmart lots, industrial streets, hidden corners where they pray to avoid police. Campgrounds have transformed from support systems into gatekeepers, pricing out and pushing away those who need help most, driving vulnerable families deeper into illegality, invisibility, and danger. For decades, free overnight parking was a survival tool for struggling RV dwellers. Walmart lots, highway rest stops, and public lands offered places to sleep without draining already empty wallets. That safety net has collapsed. Walmart, once synonymous with RV-friendly hospitality, now bans overnight stays at over 70% of its U.S. locations. Highway rest areas post threatening signs. No overnight parking. Violators will be fined $100 to $300. National Forests and Bureau of Land Management lands have slashed stay limits and deployed more rangers to enforce them. For families surviving on $1,500 to $2,000 monthly, losing free parking is catastrophic. They're forced to choose: pay $60 plus nightly at campgrounds they can't afford, or risk fines and impoundment by parking illegally. Many gamble on the latter, parking in dark industrial zones, constantly moving before dawn to avoid tickets. Advocacy groups estimate hundreds of thousands now have literally nowhere legal to park. The closures aren't about safety or cleanliness, they're about making poverty invisible. America's famed open road tradition has become a cruel joke. What once symbolized freedom and welcome now means hostility at every turn. For over 1 million Americans whose only crime is being unable to afford rent, the message is clear: you're not wanted anywhere. For over 1 million Americans living in RVs, health isn't just declining, it's becoming a death sentence. Without stable addresses, many can't access clinics that require proof of residence. Most lack insurance. Medical problems that should be routine become catastrophic. A toothache festers into a life-threatening infection. Diabetes goes unmanaged until emergency hospitalization. Advocacy groups estimate nearly 40% of RV homeless adults suffer chronic conditions, yet receive virtually no consistent care. The vehicles themselves are health hazards. Inadequate heating causes hypothermia during freezing winters. Older rigs without air conditioning become ovens in summer heat, triggering heat strokes and dehydration. Improvised propane heaters fill enclosed spaces with carbon monoxide, sending residents to ERs, or worse, killing them silently while they sleep. Mental health devastation runs even deeper. Constant fear of towing, theft, and displacement breeds depression and crippling anxiety affecting thousands. Yet psychiatric care and medications remain impossibly expensive. Many ration critical prescriptions or simply go without, watching their conditions worsen. The cycle is vicious. Poor health makes finding work harder, deepening poverty, worsening health further. Emergency rooms become primary care for those who can reach them. For America's RV homeless, the fundamental right to health care is evaporating. Each day, more people trapped in deteriorating rigs face a brutal choice: suffer in silence or risk financial ruin seeking help. Over 100,000 American children are trying to get an education while living in RVs, vans, and cars, and they're losing the battle. School attendance becomes nearly impossible when families constantly relocate to dodge tickets, towing, or campground expulsion. Each move means a new district, lost credits, severed friendships, and starting over. Without stable internet, homework is a fantasy. Remote learning? Forget it. Teachers report students arriving exhausted from generator noise that rumbles all night, unwashed because there's no shower, unable to focus because home means fear and instability crammed into 200 square feet. The academic toll is devastating. These students fall behind quickly, missing assignments they can't access and lessons they're too tired to absorb. Research shows homeless students are 87% more likely to drop out of high school, virtually guaranteeing they'll repeat their parents' poverty cycle. Some advocacy groups attempt school bus stops at RV encampments, but funding is scarce and stigma keeps desperate families hiding from authorities who might involve child services. For these children, education, supposedly the great equalizer, the pathway out of poverty, is collapsing before their eyes. The American promise that hard work and school lead to success rings hollow when your classroom is an aging motorhome and your desk is a fold-down table you share with 4 siblings. The opportunity gap isn't just wide, it's becoming permanent. The RV once embodied the American spirit: freedom, adventure, endless horizons. That romanticism is dying fast. With over 1 million Americans forced into RVs by economic desperation, public perception has turned sharply negative. RVs are no longer vacation vehicles, they're rolling symbols of systemic failure. In Los Angeles and Portland, residents don't see travelers. They see eyesore encampments threatening property values. Media coverage has shifted from scenic national parks to crime statistics, RV fires, and overflowing sewage. The open road now feels dangerous, not liberating. This stigma punishes everyone. Recreational RVers traveling by choice face hostility and suspicion. Campgrounds implement harsh restrictions, assuming all RV owners are destitute. Neighborhoods oppose RV-friendly parking laws, fearing they'll attract the wrong element. The RV world has fractured into 2 incompatible realities. Instagram influencers showcasing $200,000 luxury rigs visiting pristine destinations, versus the invisible masses, families and seniors surviving in deteriorating 1990s trailers, hiding from police. This perception shift has real consequences. Negative stereotypes fuel political support for bans, towing sweeps, and criminalization. What communities once welcomed, they now reject. Unless housing affordability improves dramatically, the RV will complete its transformation, from icon of American independence to permanent marker of economic desperation. The open road is closing, one no parking sign at a time. The numbers tell a chilling story. From over 1 million Americans living in RVs today, housing advocates project nearly 1.5 million by 2030. Rising rents, stagnant wages, and relentless inflation are pushing more families toward RVs as their last stop before sleeping on streets. Yet policy responses remain woefully inadequate. Some cities experiment with safe parking programs, fenced lots offering bathrooms, security, and basic hookups. But the scale is laughable. Los Angeles serves fewer than 500 vehicles, while thousands remain scattered illegally citywide. These pilot programs are band-aids on a hemorrhaging wound. Without massive investment in affordable housing, the crisis will metastasize beyond major cities into small towns and rural highways. Technology may make survival even harder. Surveillance drones and automated license plate readers will hunt down RVers trying to stay invisible, making hiding nearly impossible. Advocates warn of a terrifying normalization, vehicle homelessness becoming a permanent American underclass. The RV, once sold as freedom incarnate, risks becoming the defining symbol of a nation that has locked millions out of basic shelter. This isn't just an RV crisis, it's a human crisis.
Palo Alto city leaders taking action to crack down on the growing number of RVs on the streets. It's a problem we've seen in several Bay Area cities, and Palo Alto isn't just going after the RVs.
In the richest country on earth, families with full-time jobs are sleeping in parking lots, inside aging RVs, praying they make it through the night. This isn't a lifestyle choice. It's America's newest working homeless crisis, one almost no one wants to admit. America is facing a structural housing failure that can no longer be ignored. More than 1.1 million Americans currently live in vehicles including RVs, vans, sedans, and old school buses, according to national homelessness counts and independent state-level data. What makes this moment historic is not just the population size, but its composition. A rising percentage are employed full-time, yet still cannot afford traditional housing. In cities where median rents have climbed 35% to 50% since 2020, even families earning $45,000 to $75,000 annually no longer qualify for basic apartments. Vehicle living has effectively become the last tier of the housing ladder before complete street homelessness, especially for parents trying to keep children off sidewalks and out of shelters. RVs, often decades old and barely functional, have become mobile housing of last resort because they offer insulation, privacy, and enough space for kids to sleep. Municipal reports from Seattle, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Denver confirm sharp increases in vehicle dwellers across industrial zones and commercial corridors. Many families cycle between parking lots, fairgrounds, and side streets every night due to enforcement patterns, making stability nearly impossible. This group grows because wages have not kept pace with exploding living costs, leaving millions priced out of traditional housing despite steady work. Rental prices across the United States have surged at the fastest rate in modern history, rising 30% to 40% nationally since 2020, with some metro areas reporting increases exceeding 50%. This jump has effectively erased affordability for millions of working families. In cities like Denver, Phoenix, Austin, and Miami, median rent for a one-bedroom apartment now ranges between $1,900 and $2,600 monthly, far above what most full-time workers can sustain without falling behind on utilities, medical bills, or car payments. The rule that rent should not exceed 30% of income has become impossible for a majority of households. Today, 58% of renters spend over that threshold. A family earning $55,000 annually simply cannot compete in markets where landlords require proof of 3 times the monthly rent. Add rising security deposits, pet fees, and utility costs often totaling $4,500 up front, and traditional housing becomes unobtainable. This explains why RV living has surged. The upfront cost of a used RV, sometimes as low as $2,500 to $6,000, is cheaper than moving into a regular apartment. As the housing shortage grows, estimated at 7 million units nationwide, families are increasingly forced into temporary solutions like RVs, cars, or motels, not by choice but by economic necessity. A historic and disturbing shift is underway in the United States. Homelessness is no longer limited to the unemployed or extremely poor. Today, 38% of all vehicle dwellers report full-time employment, and another 14% work part-time or gig jobs. This means over half the people living in RVs and vehicles are actively working, yet remain homeless because their wages do not match soaring living costs. Middle-class professions once considered stable and dependable are now part of this crisis. Teachers earning $45,000 to $60,000, healthcare workers making $50,000 to $75,000, and service industry staff earning $30,000 to $45,000 cannot afford rising rents. Many families who owned homes just years ago lost them due to layoffs, rising interest rates, or medical debt. With mortgage rates hitting 7% to 8%, even refinancing has become impossible. These workers are not transient by lifestyle. They were forced into it by economic realities outside their control. RVs and vans offer a semi-sheltered environment where parents can continue working while trying to rebuild. But this new category of working homeless exposes a deeper systemic failure. Wages have stagnated for 2 decades, while essential costs like rent, groceries, and insurance have surged. The middle class is being squeezed into conditions once associated only with poverty. One of the most alarming developments in the current housing crisis is the sharp rise in families with children living full-time in RVs. Schools across California, Washington, Nevada, Colorado, and Texas report year-over-year increases in students listing RV park, vehicle, or no permanent address on enrollment forms. Estimates suggest more than 70,000 children in the United States now live in vehicles, a number that has doubled in less than 5 years. For many families, an RV is the only way to avoid shelters, which are often overcrowded, unsafe, or located far from jobs and schools. RV living allows parents to maintain some stability, but it comes with harsh challenges: lack of reliable electricity, limited access to clean water, exposure to extreme temperatures, and the constant threat of being towed or ticketed. Children often do homework using car lights or phone flashlights, attend Zoom classes from parking lots, and move several times monthly due to enforcement sweeps. Pediatric health experts warn that frequent displacement increases stress, disrupts social development, and leads to higher rates of anxiety and depression. Yet families choose RVs because they offer privacy and security that shelters cannot provide. The growth of child homelessness within RV communities reveals how severe the housing affordability collapse has become for working parents. The United States RV market has undergone a massive crash, leaving more than 4 million RVs in oversupply. Manufacturers overproduced during the pandemic boom, and now dealers are slashing prices to clear inventory. As a result, used RVs, once expensive luxury items, have become the cheapest form of shelter in America. Older Class C and Class A models, even those needing repairs, are selling for $2,500 to $7,000, far below the cost of first and last month's rent in most major cities. This collapse has unintentionally created a lifeline for working families priced out of traditional housing. For many, buying a beat-up RV becomes a strategic decision. It offers insulation, a bathroom, and more space than a car, making it a more viable temporary home. But the low purchase price hides ongoing challenges. Families must still pay for fuel, propane, insurance, and repairs, often totaling $250 to $500 monthly. Many RVs sold cheaply have water damage, mold, electrical issues, or failing engines, requiring constant maintenance. Even so, the affordability gap between RVs and apartments has widened so dramatically that families view RVs as the last available shelter before absolute homelessness. The RV market collapse is not just an industry story, it is a reflection of America's growing housing desperation. Across the United States, more than 15 states have passed or expanded laws that directly target families living in RVs. These laws are usually framed as public safety, environmental cleanup, or traffic enforcement. But their real effect is the systematic removal of working homeless residents from streets, parking lots, and public land. States like Oregon, Colorado, Nevada, Idaho, Texas, and Washington now authorize fines ranging from $300 to $2,500 for overnight vehicle stays. In many cases, a second offense leads to immediate towing, even if the RV is the family's only home. Cities including Denver, Portland, Seattle, Boise, and Austin conduct weekly or even daily sweeps, forcing families to move constantly. Some municipalities have introduced time-limit parking rules of 2 to 4 hours on industrial streets where RV dwellers historically parked overnight, effectively making long-term survival impossible. Winter states enforce even harsher crackdowns due to hazard clearing operations that claim to prevent road blockage, but in reality, displace entire communities. Many families lose everything during tows because retrieval costs can exceed $1,200, far beyond what low-income workers can pay. Once an RV is impounded, it is often destroyed. This expanding crackdown shows that the crisis is not just economic, it is legal, with families being pushed out by state systems designed to deny them any form of stable, affordable shelter. A growing number of RV dwellers are not unemployed. They are professionals who once considered themselves solidly middle class. Nurses, certified nursing assistants, substitute teachers, retail supervisors, Amazon warehouse workers, hotel staff, long-haul drivers, and restaurant managers represent a significant portion of the newly homeless workforce. Many earn between $35,000 and $70,000 annually. Yet even this income no longer covers rising rent, insurance, and childcare costs. In cities where rent exceeds $2,100 monthly, even a full-time salary cannot keep a family stably housed. Job loss is not always the trigger. Many of these workers were pushed into RV living simply because renewing a lease now requires income levels far above what they earn. Others lost homes due to unexpected medical bills, car breakdowns, or pandemic-era debts. In high-cost states like California and Colorado, it is increasingly common to see nurses sleeping in RVs outside hospitals or warehouse workers living in vans near distribution centers. Employers often know the truth but remain silent, relying on this mobile workforce to cover understaffed positions. This shift reveals a deeper structural breakdown. Stable employment no longer guarantees stable housing. RV living is becoming an economic pressure valve for middle-class workers crushed between stagnant wages and runaway living costs. One of the most heartbreaking elements of the crisis is the surge in seniors living full-time in RVs, vans, and cars. Over 700,000 Americans aged 55 and older now rely on vehicles as their primary residence. Many of these seniors spent decades working, raising families, and paying mortgages, only to find themselves priced out of the housing market late in life. Rising rents, medical expenses, property tax increases, and shrinking retirement savings have created a perfect storm. A significant portion of seniors receive monthly Social Security checks between $1,100 and $1,600, far below the national average rent of $1,900 to $2,200. For many, RV living becomes the only viable choice. Yet aging on wheels comes with dangerous challenges: mobility issues, lack of heating during winter, limited access to healthcare, and difficulty performing basic maintenance tasks on their vehicles. Emergency winter shelters often cannot accommodate seniors with medical devices or pets, pushing them further into isolation. In states like Arizona, Nevada, and California, entire parking lots now serve as de facto retirement communities, with elderly residents forming networks for safety and shared resources. While some seniors choose RV life, the majority were forced into it due to economic hardship. Their growing numbers highlight a national failure to protect older Americans from financial collapse. Thousands of working families now rely on corporate parking lots as their nightly shelter, creating an invisible network of temporary neighborhoods across the country. Walmart, Cracker Barrel, Bass Pro Shops, and even some large churches allow overnight parking, not out of formal policy, but as an unspoken form of humanitarian relief. It is common to see 10 to 40 RVs or cars in a single lot, each occupied by workers who cannot afford local housing. In industrial zones near Amazon, UPS, and FedEx facilities, entire stretches of streets fill with employee vehicles used as living quarters. Some workers shower at gyms, cook on portable stoves, and leave before store managers arrive. These lots have become survival hubs where families share food, extension cords, and information on nearby cities with less enforcement. However, crackdowns are increasing even here. Several large chains have begun restricting overnight stays due to liability fears and complaints from local governments. This forces families to move nightly, often driving miles just to find a safe spot to rest. Living in corporate lots reveals an uncomfortable truth. America's housing crisis is being absorbed by businesses rather than social systems. These makeshift communities show how widespread the issue has become, stretching far beyond visible homeless encampments into everyday commercial spaces. Many people assume RV living is cheap, but for thousands of working families, campground costs have become one of the biggest financial burdens keeping them in poverty. Private campgrounds across the United States now charge between $55 and $110 per night, which adds up to more than $1,650 to $3,300 monthly, higher than rent in many suburban areas. These prices skyrocketed after the pandemic surge in recreational RV travel, with campgrounds upgrading amenities and raising rates to match tourist demand, not residential needs. Even monthly rates, once a bargain at $450 to $600, now frequently exceed $900 to $1,400, especially near major cities. For families trying to maintain jobs or keep their kids in the same school district, these rates make long-term stays financially impossible. Many campgrounds also impose strict limits, such as a 14 or 30-day maximum stay, forcing families to relocate constantly. Even state parks, once affordable alternatives, have raised nightly fees to $35 to $55 and often require advance reservations that homeless residents cannot secure. As a result, many families rotate between free public land, truck stops, and parking lots to avoid financial collapse. The rising cost of campgrounds reveals a paradox. The cheapest housing option in America is no longer cheap, leaving families with shrinking options for survival. The current wave of layoffs in the United States is reshaping the housing landscape in ways not seen since 2008. Over 720,000 layoffs have been publicly announced this year across industries including tech, retail, logistics, manufacturing, healthcare, and finance. But unlike past recessions, today's layoffs strike people who are already living paycheck to paycheck due to inflated rents and rising costs. Losing even 1 month of income sends many families directly into homelessness because they cannot cover rent, car payments, insurance, and utilities simultaneously. Eviction filings have jumped 35% to 50% in states like Nevada, Colorado, and Arizona, where housing markets became overinflated. Many families who lose their homes move into older RVs or vans because they are the only immediate alternative to shelters, which are overcrowded or unsafe for children. Layoffs also disrupt employer-provided insurance, forcing families to choose between car repairs, medical bills, and food. Those who find new jobs often must relocate, but relocation is impossible without savings. As a result, more workers turn to RVs as mobile housing while seeking work in lower-cost states. This cycle creates a new type of economic instability. People are not just unemployed, they are displaced. The layoff crisis is feeding directly into the RV homelessness surge, revealing how fragile the modern workforce has become. For families living in RVs, the cost of simply keeping the vehicle functional is a crisis of its own. While buying an older RV can be cheaper than securing an apartment, maintaining it can drain hundreds of dollars each month. Basic liability insurance for an RV ranges from $45 to $120 monthly, depending on state requirements and the age of the vehicle. Gas costs fluctuate dramatically, especially for families forced to move frequently due to parking enforcement. A single relocation can burn $25 to $60 in fuel, and repeat sweeps may require families to drive hundreds of miles each month. Repairs create the biggest financial strain. Many older RVs have leaking roofs, faulty plumbing, failing alternators, and worn brakes. Even minor repairs like a water pump or steering component can cost $150 to $400, while major issues like engine failure cost $2,000 to $6,000, effectively totaling the RV. These expenses trap families in a constant cycle of instability. A breakdown means losing workdays, losing mobility, or becoming stranded in zones where towing is likely. Many families rely on portable heaters, generators, or propane tanks, adding another $50 to $150 monthly cost. These compounding expenses reveal the hidden truth. RV living is not cheap. It is survival on wheels, and every mile brings new risk. One of the most devastating realities facing RV-dependent families is the legal system's ability to seize their only shelter over minor infractions. In multiple states, including Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Nevada, and California, expired tags, broken taillights, unpaid parking tickets, or simply overstaying a posted time limit can trigger mandatory towing. Fines typically start around $150 to $300, but towing and impound fees quickly escalate to $800 to $1,600, far beyond what low-income workers can pay. Once an RV enters impound, owners often have just 72 hours to retrieve it before it is sold or destroyed. Many families lose everything inside: clothing, medications, documents, tools, even children's school materials. Enforcement sweeps often occur without warning, leaving families returning from work to find their home gone. Some cities justify these actions by labeling RVs as abandoned vehicles, even when clearly occupied. In extreme cases, states issue public nuisance orders that allow mass towing of entire streets. For families with no savings, losing their RV forces them into tents, shelters, or direct street homelessness. This system effectively criminalizes poverty by punishing people for being unable to afford repairs or registration. The result is a cycle of displacement, where families are pushed deeper into instability every time they interact with parking enforcement or law enforcement agencies. Many RV families have become forced migrants within their own country, traveling long distances in search of states with milder weather, cheaper campgrounds, or less enforcement. Winter poses deadly risks for RV dwellers. Temperatures below freezing can burst water lines, kill batteries, and create life-threatening cold exposure. Every year, dozens of vehicle dwellers die during extreme cold events, though many deaths go uncounted because they are classified as exposure. To avoid this, families often migrate from northern states such as Colorado, Washington, Oregon, and Montana toward warmer regions like Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and parts of California. Others move because some counties offer lower-cost RV parks, with monthly rates between $400 to $650 compared to $900 to $1,400 in high-demand states. But relocation brings its own problems: fuel costs, loss of community, school instability for children, and the need to continually find new places to park without facing eviction or fines. Many families follow seasonal work such as Amazon, UPS, agriculture, or tourism, treating their RV as both home and transportation. However, rising enforcement in warmer states means migration is not a solution. It is a temporary delay of crisis. This movement shows how housing instability forces families to chase survival across state lines, turning the entire country into a rotating maze of affordability challenges. The number of children growing up in RVs, vans, and cars has surged to more than 70,000 nationwide, according to school district reporting data and federal homelessness definitions. This is one of the most alarming indicators of the housing crisis. These children are not traveling for recreation. They are living in makeshift homes while parents work full-time jobs. Schools note rising enrollment of students with no fixed residence, vehicle, or temporary location listed as their address. Constant mobility disrupts education. Children often change schools multiple times per year, struggle with homework due to lack of lighting or internet, and face difficulty keeping up with vaccinations, health checkups, and extracurricular activities. Living in an RV also exposes children to harsh conditions. Cold nights, heat waves, limited cooking facilities, and unsafe parking environments. Pediatric experts warn of increased stress-related health issues, including sleep problems, anxiety, and digestive disorders. Hygiene becomes a challenge when families rely on truck stops or gym memberships for showers. Many children hide their living situation from peers due to embarrassment. Despite these challenges, families choose RVs to maintain safety and privacy, especially when shelters are overcrowded or unsafe. The rise of child RV homelessness highlights how deeply the housing market has failed working families, leaving the youngest Americans to grow up in unstable conditions. The most disturbing reality of the RV homelessness crisis is how invisible it remains. The United States government largely categorizes people living in RVs as campers, transient occupants, or vehicle dwellers, not as homeless, meaning they are excluded from many official counts and denied access to critical housing resources. This classification hides the fact that tens of thousands of families with full-time jobs are living in vehicles because the housing market no longer accommodates them. These are retail workers, delivery drivers, licensed healthcare workers, hospitality staff, construction workers, government employees, and even small business owners. They pay taxes, support the economy, and show up to work every day, yet cannot afford a stable roof over their heads. The absence of recognition allows politicians and agencies to avoid confronting the scale of the crisis. Without accurate data, there is no federal urgency to expand affordable housing, regulate rent increases, or restrict predatory towing policies. The result is a silent humanitarian emergency where workers drift between parking lots, industrial zones, and temporary sites while maintaining jobs and raising families. This is not nomad life or van lifestyle. It is survival. The refusal to acknowledge their homelessness ensures that millions of working Americans remain unseen, unsupported, and unprotected as the crisis accelerates. Behind every RV door is a family fighting to survive. Do you think the housing crisis can still be reversed? Share your thoughts below. And don't miss our next video, where we show how fast this crisis is spreading across the country.